Okay, in 1967, we were taking part of our vacation up in Baxter State Park in northern Maine, where is Mount Katahdin, the highest mountain in Maine, of roughly 5,000 foot altitude. We would hike up from the bottom, and but there was another peak a little bit lower than Mount Katahdin, possibly a mile to 2 miles away, and the two peaks were connected by what they called the Knife Edge Trail. It was a very narrow thing with a trail, a hiking trail, going from one peak to the other. And if you slid off one edge, you'd probably drop down 2,000 or 3,000 feet. And so that's where the dangerous part.
Keep going.
We me and one or two of my sons traversed that Knife Edge Trail at least once. But later on in another year, my son Jim and his friend Bill from the Williamsport Police Department were up there, and Jim suggested that they go on the Knife Edge to the other peak. Jim was fine with that, but Bill wouldn't go. He said it's too dangerous. So he never did go across the Knife Edge. That's how dangerous it seemed. Okay. Now I have a few interesting incidents. I don't know if you're interested in all of them, but in 1962 we were building the pond out here. We moved here in 1960, and that was sort of a marshy area, so we decided to have a pond built. And Mr. Bishop from Ulster came with his bulldozer, and I borrowed an instrument from Sylvania so we could get everything just level. And it was going fine, but as he got deeper into the ground, it got more like hardpan, hard clay. And each pass he'd get maybe 1 inch deeper. So this was going to take a long time, and I decided that I'd do something drastic. So I went to a hardware store, not in Towanda. In fact, I don't think I'll mention where it was. And I bought a case of dynamite with blasting caps. And of course I had a 250-foot electrical cable available, which we ran from the pond up toward the house. And up toward the house we had a automobile battery. I don't know whether it was 6 volt or 12 volt. So all we had to do was to dig or punch a hole down in with a sharpened iron rod to make a hole, and then packed down a stick of dynamite in that hole, and put the blasting cap on top, connect it to the wire, and then we all cleared out. And somebody up at the battery would connect the cable to the terminals of the battery, and wow, that was a big bang. And but we did that with a few sticks, and then we saw it wasn't going all that fast, so I don't know if I made 2 holes or made 1 hole bigger, but we put 2 sticks in, and with the set up. Well, that really made a commotion. In fact, some of the pieces of rock and so on came as far up as, like where the willow tree is.
Yeah.
And this was from a far end of the pond, so it was blowing stuff
Yeah.
pretty far.
Yeah.
That was the last time. I think that was the last blast that we did. But anyway, it was potentially dangerous. We ended up with probably more than half a case of dynamite left. So we were going to store this down in the milk house. But some other members of the family thought that was too close to the house for half a case of dynamite. So we eventually we sold it to the person that drilled our deep well. Because they use dynamite, they get down so far, maybe to rock, and they have to use dynamite to break up the rock so they can continue drilling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we got rid of the rest of the dynamite. But it was potentially a dangerous situation. Well, I've got a few interesting incidents. I don't know how interesting you'll think they are. But one of them was actually when I was in the Navy. In 1944, I was stationed out in California. I was at a 3-month school for electronics. And come Christmas vacation, we had, a week or two off. But I didn't want to use that in traveling back to the East Coast and back. So I decided to stay right there, and it was from the Monterey Peninsula and going north, you could go up and in a side road, go up to Yosemite National Park. So I decided I'd like to do that. So I hitchhiked up. Of course, in Navy uniform, you didn't have any problem getting rides. But they let me out at this side road, which went basically up to the park. And it was getting late in the day, and I walked a ways, but there was no traffic whatsoever. There weren't even any buildings, no civilization at all on this side road. And when it began getting dark, I wondered, well, what should I do? I wasn't going to try to walk in it was probably a few miles. I didn't want to walk in the dark all that far. So there was, I think it was a cow pasture right next to the highway, and it looked pretty empty. So I went up in that a little ways away from the road, and I found a comfortable spot, and I lay down and spent the night there. I don't know what wildlife may have been lurking nearby, but I wasn't bothered.
That's good.
So I got my somewhat a night's sleep. And then the next day, I was out on the road, and there was a young couple that stopped and picked me up and took me on the rest of the way to the park. Trouble is, you'd need a car up there to see very many of the sights. And I wasn't going to ask them to take me around. I don't know if they were on their honeymoon or what. Anyway, got back all right. That was my Christmas vacation. Of course, it wasn't all that cold, because it's not that far north in California, even in December. Okay, now,